Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. In the early stages of the economic crisis, which is affecting almost every nation in Europe and across the world, the EU was criticised for not acting fast enough, and when it did, for not tackling the problems effectively. It's strange now to see Europe being criticised by some for putting forward proposals to help tackle the instability afflicting our economies. It would seem that no matter what the EU does, it will never be good enough or acceptable to some. Last week, the Irish people accepted the Stability Treaty and by doing so guaranteed Irish access to the European Stability Mechanism, if and when we require it. The legislation before the House today gives effect to this democratic decision. However, even now we have TDs and others who didn't support the Stability Treaty, complaining that the treaty hasn't solved our problems and hasn't made any difference. But they forget that, as with all problems, there is no quick fix or a cure-all solution. The Stability Treaty was never presented as such, rather was presented by the government honestly and openly as part of a long-term solution. Because of the speed and nature of the financial crisis, the EU and its member states created a short-term solution in the European Financial Stability Facility, which was backed by the Eurozone countries as well as Poland and Sweden. It has become clear, however, that a more permanent approach is needed. The ESM, along with the six packs of directives and regulations, is part of this approach. Of all the member states of the EU, the establishment of the ESM is of particular importance to us here in Ireland, as well as to Greece and to Portugal. We must recognise that the current gap between our national income and our national spending is being filled in no small part by the current EFSF arrangements. And in turn, we must recognise that the finance for the EFSF is being provided by other EU nations, including Germany. This support is enabling us to address our deficit, which is only partially due to the banking sector, over a large time frame, and is thus affording us time and space that we would not otherwise have. The importance of growth must also be emphasised. It has been rightly earmarked as an essential component of any approach at tackling the problems before us. But growth goes hand in hand with stability. If there is no stability, there is no growth, and one clear result of stability, which this government has promoted with its policies, is investment. Without stability, the investment, which has resulted in over 1,200 jobs in my own constituency of Galway West alone over the last year, would not have been made. I've listened to other public representatives, to economists, to academics and to journalists, and it is clear that there exists a cohort of people who would like nothing more than for the euro, if not the EU itself, to collapse. It saddens and concerns me to think that people would actively welcome the trauma and strife of the collapse that a currency brings. The euro is our currency. It's also currency of the German people, the French people, the Italian people and many others. But it's collectively our currency. And we have a duty to take measures to protect and safeguard our currency. The ownership we take of our currency must, however, be matched on our ownership we must take to the solutions required to safeguard it. The effectiveness of the European Stability Mechanism will depend on the support it receives from member states. I believe it's entirely appropriate that Ireland, along with all other Eurozone countries, make its contribution to ensure a functioning and feasible safety net. We will contribute 1.6% of the total €700 billion fund, and for that we will be able to rely on a permanent stability mechanism. I hope that the ESM funds will not be needed or called upon by any EU member state, but its existence will help provide the assurance and confidence required for investment and in turn for job creation. By introducing and passing this European Stability Mechanism today, Fine Gael, Labour and Fianna Fáil, I believe, are not only respecting the democratic wishes of the Irish people, but acting responsibly and practically for the good of our country, our currency and for the European Union.
Thank you, Deputy.